And now, the best 60-ish seconds of your week. Well, we're at the 100-day mark, and 100 days is, generally speaking for the media, a yardstick of some sort when talking about political campaigns or administrations. And there are now 100 days left until November 3rd and the 2020 election, which will be, by that point, behind us. So it's important for us now to take a look at the state of the campaign and see what's really going on. And the polls suggest that Joe Biden enjoys a marginally comfortable lead at this juncture, and I underline at this juncture. But what's very interesting in terms of looking at the polling is both a historic look at what Donald Trump has always done, which is outperform the polls, sometimes dramatically, and the fact that increasingly Americans are saying they are uncomfortable discussing their personal views. That's generally. Think about how much worse it's going to be when they're talking to a pollster. The Bradley effect that we've talked about so much previously, where folks simply don't tell pollsters the truth or don't reveal how they're actually going to vote, will, in my judgment, work to Donald Trump's distinct advantage come November 3rd. I think he'll be trailing in the polls throughout the campaign, but the one that counts is on November 3rd. The Cato Institute had a survey out this week that said 62% of the American people are simply unwilling to tell others about their personal, especially political feelings right now. So think about that. And as we move away from politics, Major League Baseball got back underway this week with a shortened 60-game season with some new rules and no fans. So what are they going to do in place of that? At least for MLB television broadcasts, they will have virtual fans. You know, it makes me think of the time when North Korea rented fans to go to the Olympic Games because they didn't want their citizens seeing how the rest of the world lived for fear that it might cause political uprising back at home. So they paid a few folks to go out to the ballpark for them. And since nobody's going to the ballpark now, they're going to computer generate fans for consumption by the viewing audience at home. We'll see how that works. But unfortunately, we're going to be infused with a bunch of political statements too, both on the field, literally diagrammed out on different portions of the tarmac, and kneeling before the games. We're going to hear that throughout the season, and unfortunately for the NFL to follow, and bluntly, none of us want that. We go to the ballpark, if we go, or we watch on television now, to see them play ball, not to be lectured to about anything, quite frankly. And in an interesting twist, the Toronto Blue Jays were still looking for a home at midweek because it appeared that they'd have an opportunity to play in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania at PNC Park there, but the good Democrat administration of Pennsylvania said, no. Only Pennsylvania teams can play there because somehow they're immune from the Wuhan flu and folks coming in from Canada wouldn't be, or some goofy theory. But anyway, the Toronto Blue Jays were still looking for a place to play when we taped this. There's one other note from this world of sports worth mentioning this week, and that is that Jim Ryun, the fabled middle distance runner, at one point regarded as the best in the world, was on Friday awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom by Donald J. Trump. Jim Ryun, who was the first high schooler to break the 4-minute mile, went on to great glory at the University of Kansas, battling with Villanova's Marty LaCour, and obviously he's a good Villanovan. I was always for Marty, but I had great respect for Jim Ryun, and the battles that they had were epic, including the Dream Mile in Philadelphia, where LaCour nosed out Ryun and set an own personal record. But Jim Ryun had a career beyond the athletic turf, and he was awarded the Medal of Freedom by President Trump largely because of his service in the United States Congress, and since then, a stalwart conservative in the Congress. He's gone on to do many, many wonderful things. I had the privilege of serving with his son on a board, and am delighted that Jim Ryun received the Presidential Medal of Freedom. And as cities were burning around the country, there was a different kind of fire in Houston this week, where at the Chinese consulate, there was a fire responded to by firefighters who weren't allowed to put out the fire in the courtyard. Apparently there were documents by the scores being burned up there by the Chinese communists as they were forced to vacate that consulate there. That came on the heels of two hackers from China being arrested and charged with stealing millions of dollars worth of trade secrets and intellectual property from Americans. The Trump administration is putting the hammer down on China. It's long overdue. The Chinese communists simply lie, cheat, and steal, and they are out to destroy us. And it's about time that this issue was brought front and center, and I believe that during the course of this campaign, it's going to be. It's a major issue, and let's watch how it develops. Finally, in economic news this week, the markets were chugging along until the jobs report for June came out. More unemployment claims than expected, a real tragic situation for America. We went from the lowest unemployment, particularly among the minority community, in a long, long time, through the pandemic and the lockdowns and shutdowns that have occurred that have driven unemployment to totally unacceptable levels. We've got to get back to the near full employment that we had in the early part of this year under the policies and economic programs of the Trump administration. And you look and see what happens with the airlines here recently. Southwest Airlines, their earnings report posting nearly $1 billion loss. Think about that. The big airlines, the big four especially, take in roughly $100 million a day in gross revenue during regular periods. Right now, they're realizing 20 to 30 million. Now, the first part of the year is always the lag time for the airline industry. They pick it up in the third and fourth quarter. So we're just hoping that that vital staple of the American economy is able to survive and thrive. They're not allowed to lay folks off until October under the provisions of the bailout that they got, I think $30 billion deal that they got from the federal government. So at least people are still employed there, but the airline industry is on shaky ground, and that does not portend great things for the economy, although other sectors continue to look up. And the market this week was near 27,000 before a pretty significant sell-off on Thursday. So we'll look for better things ahead. And for now, that is the best 60-ish seconds of your week. Wait, you're still there? Now, it's not Ferris Bueller, but I thought I'd mention that as we concluded taping, and now you know we did it on Thursday, we received word that President Trump has called off the Jacksonville portion of the Republican National Convention this year. That was mainly the big part for delegates and alternate delegates and their guests, and the big acceptance speech that the president always makes. So we'll see what form and fashion that takes. I'll probably have to go to Charlotte now to keep my record of the most conventions attended by any Pennsylvanian intact. It's really going to be very, very different this year with no real conventions. We'll see whether they ever come back. It's going to be fascinating. Talk to you soon. Go away.